Thank you very much, Andy. Yeah, this is the storm that Frank and I were just tracking about 10 minutes ago or so. It's sort of the tail end. This is the actual front out there, and this just came down from the National Weather Service. They just put that tornado warning on, and let's see, that goes until 4:30, so about the next 30 minutes, and it's because the bottom end of this cluster down in Colorado County is really beefed up. That's the one that they've been sort of concerned with so far. So let's jump in a little tighter on that and get a better sense of what we're seeing. It's interesting is there's no skits. There's none of those the storm tracker indicators to give us an idea what's happening. But if you look in the center of that storm, my guess is that we probably got some sort of rotation that's happening within there. And in fact, let me get rid of that real quick. And let's see what we've got on the radar. And that should give us an indication if we're seeing anything in particular. So let's go over to the velocity product. And it does look like we've got a little bit potential of rotation in here. We've got a lot of strong outbound winds. Remember, the red is going away from the radar site. The green's going towards the radar site. And that's how you pick up that spin. Not picking up a whole lot of inbound, but we're picking up a whole lot of outbound there. And that's where you see the brighter the red color, the brighter those colors are, the more indication is that we have either some strong downburst winds or winds that are moving away from the radar site. Maybe not necessarily something is super tight that they're sort of coiling around, but enough that there's probably some very good rotation within this storm. So if you are in the path towards Eagle Lake there, I would definitely take this very seriously. And this is one of those in particular that you want to make sure that you don't go out and try snapping pictures of this right now. You're in the middle of it. In fact, here I'll turn over the radar and get you a sense of what it looks like. That's it right there. And if we look at what the threats are, my guess is that, yep, we're going to see a real good hail core right in the center of that storm. And that's what may be one of the other reasons why they decided to go ahead and put a tornado warning on that. So it's not only has a severe thunderstorm warning, which is this yellow box outside of it, but you can also see that tornado warning right in the center of that storm. So there's Highway 71, there's Highway 90 right at that intersection there. Let me get in real tight on this for folks that are out in and around that way. So that's Altair. There's Eagle Lake, Matthews, we've got Raynor Junction, Lakeside. So anywhere across Highway 90 just to the south of there is where the center of the storm is, and that's where we're seeing that tornado warning. And as I mentioned just a second ago, that goes until 4:30. So if we look at any type of rotation with that, I'm not picking up a whole lot. This, I assume that's a radar indicated, Frank, is that right?
There's quarter-size hail.
Okay, so quarter-size hail.
South of Rock Island.
Just south of Rock Island.
So they're looking at that.
Yeah.
That's from Colorado County.
Okay.
And then penny-size hail on Highway 36.
And penny-size hail on Highway 36.
South of Kinney in Austin County.
Just south of Kinney in Austin County. So this is part of the front that's still packing a pretty good punch here. So, yeah, actually, there we go. Let me go here. This is towards Edna. So there's Victoria. And I mentioned this before, that big monster hailstorm we had near Gonzales, the tail end of that, or sort of the bottom end of that front, was actually sliding down towards Cuero over to Victoria, and that's what it looks like now. It's breaking up just a bit, but even as it is, it still has a pretty good amount of some heavy, showers and thunderstorms on that as well. All right, so let's jump in a little tighter on this here. It looks like they finally put a storm cell indicator for us here. Let's see what the threats are in this storm in particular. So we've got moving east at almost 50 miles an hour. And we've got hail at about 50%, so there may be some potential for some hail falling at this point. The bigger issue, I think, it also is just the strong winds, and of course the storm itself blasting right towards Eagle Lake. So if you're watching us around Eagle Lake, it is just before 4 o'clock, 4:05. So you got about 4 minutes or so before the center of this storm is going to smash right across Highway 90 there. Now, if it can hold together, that may be working its way eventually towards Wallace and East Bernard. At least the bottom end of that could get clipped. And the whole storm itself, this whole line has been moving at about 35, 40, 45 miles an hour at times. So an indicator that it is certainly still packing a pretty good punch. So that's what we've got. It is 4 o'clock. I'm meteorologist Justin Stapleton. If you've been joining us here on KPRC2 or KPRC2 Plus, we've been in extended severe weather coverage for about 2 hours now. Myself and Chief Meteorologist Frank Billingsley here in the Weather Center. Tracking what has been a very active afternoon over the last 90 minutes to 2 hours, that's where these storms have really started to crank up. Let me jump out and we'll just kind of reset things and get you a sense of what we're watching and what we're going to be tracking here over the next 1 to 2 hours. We have one active tornado warning. That's this one right here near Eagle Lake in particular. That goes until 4:30 in Colorado County. That is part of the actual front itself that is all moving through at about 40 to 45 miles an hour. We've been seeing severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings up across parts of Lake Livingston over towards Onalaska, Corrigan. That's now moving its way just north of Beaumont. We have a cluster in central Liberty County, also an indicator that we're dealing with some strong showers and thunderstorms. And if we put this over the last hour, you can see that whole line continuing to slowly work its way closer to us here. Now, the speed of this right now, as I said, is about 40, 45 miles an hour. So we expect this to be in and across the Houston area probably within, I'd give it maybe 35 to 45 minutes. So about 5 o'clock, we will likely be seeing the leftovers of some of this line. And there are still some pretty strong leftovers within that line itself that are going to come smashing their way across much of the metro. So, of course, the afternoon to evening commute is going to be affected. We've already heard from some HISD schools that they've canceled after-school activities just in preparation of some of this weather to make sure that all the students, teachers, and volunteers and parents are safe this afternoon, this evening. Then, of course, you see this new white box that just popped up right near Katy. This is the one that Frank's been talking about. If you were joining us during the 3 o'clock hour, you're talking about this part of the front, and this is the actual cold front itself that is going to smash right across the greater Katy area. So if we get in real tight on that, there's Pattison, there's Brookshire, there's Fulshire. So right in between Fulshire and Brookshire, if you go out, that's out towards Igloo Road, for example, and the Buc-ee's that's way out there, just past Katy before you go from Katy to Sealy. That's one big cluster that we're watching and tracking right now. We've got another one to the south of there. That's where our active tornado warning is. As I mentioned, that goes until 4:30 this afternoon. There's Eagle Lake, and it is right on top of you. If you are over in Eagle Lake right now, you need to make sure that you are in a safe space. There is a radar indicated tornado. Doesn't mean that we've had one on the ground. Different than what we were seeing up around Livingston, where that was a confirmed tornado, meaning that a storm spotter, someone that has been trained by the National Weather Service, actually spotted that funnel cloud. Don't have any reports of any kind of damage at this point yet, but we do have one of our KPRC2 reporters headed out that way to see if there are any reports of that. So that tornado warning goes until 4:30. Now, if we kind of widen things out and show you what else is happening, we've got the northern end of this cold front that's really kind of falling apart. I'm not seeing a whole lot of additional real heavy rain with this. There is still some pockets of moderate rain from Livingston over to Shepherd. Let me clear this out for the screen here. There's Conroe down to the Woodlands, and so this is all pushing southward. Now, our western counties that were in that tornado watch until 9 o'clock have been dropped. My guess is that within the next hour, as this front continues to slide across the area, we're going to start seeing places like Colorado County get dropped. Sealy will like to get dropped. Waller County will get dropped. Down around Wharton in towards, Fort Bend County. You get the idea. Within the next 2 hours, all of this will be taken out of the tornado watch, and the threat will continue to move to the east for us over the next 1 to 2 hours. Places like Lake Charles up towards Shreveport, really going to see the brunt of this over much of the evening and into the overnight hours as it moves over into Mississippi, Alabama, and eventually Georgia, and into the Carolinas. This is going to be a big weather story and a big weather player for a lot of travel over the next, let's say, about 36 hours here at this point. So if we put an hour loop on this, notice that we do have Livingston over to Conroe. Let me back this out just a bit. And this is where we were seeing those tornado warnings earlier this afternoon over the last hour or so, right up around Lake Livingston over to Onalaska, Corrigan. We had that severe thunderstorm warning over towards Huntsville. Notice at the tail end of that falling apart quickly. College Station over towards Bryant County. Things are quieting down very quickly. Same thing for our friends up towards Madisonville, mainly just light showers at this point. And then right now, I think the two things we're going to have to watch is we've got this cluster right here, the northern end of this front, that's from Livingston over to Shepherd down towards Cleveland. No lightning with that. Notice it's kind of collapsing, meaning that this may be weakening some. As it does, we'll have to see if this continues to slide over and can merge with this cluster that's gaining strength over and across parts of Liberty County. That's over towards Lumberton, over to Silsbee as well, just north of Beaumont. So that's going to be tracking its way over across East Texas here within the next 30 minutes. So that means that anywhere anywhere across, I-10 from Mont Bellevue over to Winnie as you make the turn going over towards Beaumont. We're going to continue to see some pretty stormy conditions, and that one in particular is really ramping up. Let's actually take a look at that and just see. So that's a new severe thunderstorm warning. That area, that goes until 4:45, so about the next 40 minutes or so, and that also has a pretty good severe weather indicators on there. It's moving northeast at 47 miles an hour. The tops are about 36,000 feet. So like we were discussing earlier, that's up where, your cruising altitude for your jets. And not only that, but severe hail, 30%, hail, 100%, hail size of that, about 3/4. So we're talking at least penny-sized hail if any is falling. And of course, the lightning there across parts of eastern Liberty County really starting to bang out as well. All right, so let's back out and let's get a better sense of what we're seeing. Folks down at the coast probably will not see much impact from this until we get closer to about 6 to 7 o'clock, when we expect this whole line to be moving southward. But there are still pockets along this line where we're looking at some very, very strong thunderstorms. And of course, that tornado warning, as I mentioned, that's over just towards Eagle Lake, that goes until 4:30. So let's jump back over there. First, though, actually, I'm going to do a quick peek of what we're seeing. I know a lot of folks are, trying to get out, pick the kids up from after-school activities. For those that did have that, get home from work, get off shift, you get the idea. We'll call it mainly light to moderate rainfall scattered there across parts of the Southwest Freeway towards the Highway 90. And then you've got 10 and 610 there as well. So Hobby over to Pasadena, we've had lots of delays at both of the airports today as well. This has been a very probably frustrating day for folks trying to get in or out of town. Of course, we have the national championship this evening as well. You saw our own Rochelle Turner there a little bit ago with the fans trying to enjoy themselves. And right now, if you look, there's NRG, there's the stadium. We've got some pretty good clusters of thunderstorms just south of there towards Myrtle over to Alameda Plaza. So watch it. If we put this in motion here, just for the the folks that are out there trying to enjoy that, right now, my guess is it'll probably hang just south of the stadium. I'm not seeing any lightning with that, so that's the good news. But still, it doesn't take much to get a lightning strike out of one of these clusters, one of these cells real fast. So I think if you're headed on down to NRG, if you do have tickets to tonight's game, we will probably be impacted by this weather, at least as the line itself is going to move through over the next, I'd give it another hour. So we're probably talking closer to about 5 to 5:30 when we'll see the leftovers of this line smash on across some of the southeast part or southwest part, that is, down around NRG Stadium. So I know that we've got, I believe 6:30 is kickoff, so there will be folks headed inside at that time. So this may be one of those, if you are headed to the game or if you know somebody that's down at the game, text them and say, hey, head inside early and don't deal with this. You don't want to be stuck out there if you're dealing with the storms and getting soaked before you go in to watch the game. That's just not a very pleasant experience. All right, so Storm Tracker 2 live radar, we're still tracking some of these heavier showers and thunderstorms, some of these stronger ones in and across what's left over of this cold front as it's moving its way through. And in fact, I'm actually looking, some of the traffic cameras are just off of the screen here. And most of what we're seeing now is still some wet weather, but some improvement. And actually what I'm seeing as you get way out towards I-10 Katy and 1463 is that the cameras are starting to jiggle around. So the wind that's moving in behind this is really becoming a factor. And I think that'll be the story later on this evening, and certainly for tomorrow's forecast. If you were watching earlier today, we were in the 70s. We'll have the highs coming up here a little later in the show. But we will be in the 50s tomorrow and probably struggle to get into those mid-50s, even with a lot of sunshine, which I'm expecting for our Tuesday as well. So just before 4:10, it's meteorologist Justin Stapleton. We're doing extended coverage here during the KPRC 2 News at 4 with our Storm Tracker 2 live radar. We have one active tornado warning. That is over towards Eagle Lake. That goes until 4:30 this afternoon. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning off to the east of central Liberty County. That's over towards Lumberton. That goes until 4:45. So sort of the bookends of the viewing area right now. And then also we've been tracking some stronger storms up to the north of us here towards Jasper. Those are all headed out in towards east and northeast Texas over towards the Arklatex. But for right now, it's just the line of storms that are continuing to pound their way through the area. That is the actual front itself. If you look off back to the west towards Bryan College Station, where we had some really gnarly storms over towards New Braunfels and San Marcos and San Antonio at about 1:30 this afternoon. All clear out there across the I-35 corridor. Let me put this in motion over the last hour and give you a sense of what we've been seeing. And you can see just how fast these storms have been moving the whole line at about 40, 45 miles an hour. Not only that, but we've also been watching from the Woodlands down towards Katy into Columbus. And so each one of these areas here that you see that has these white boxes, these are called it's called special weather statements. Think of it as sort of a, hey, heads up, this is a strong thunderstorm. May not be severe, but strong enough that it is certainly one that's garnered the attention of the National Weather Service and will likely be something they'll watch very carefully to see if they need to put a severe thunderstorm warning on that. And notice that we have a good chunk of the area right now that's dominated by all of these storms as they're moving their way in and across the area. So let me stop this and get a better sense of what we're seeing as we go. Let's put a stop to that. There we go. And see what we've got towards Katy. Guys, if you can hear me in the booth, do we have an update from CenterPoint of what kind of outages we're looking at so far? I think we were at about 22,000. I heard Debbie, one of our executive producers, say, if anybody knows that or if you can get that, shoot it in my ear, and I'll let everybody know what we're dealing with so far. So that, I think, is going to be another issue as we get in towards this evening, not only with the storms moving through, but we've got some very strong winds that are going to move in behind this storm as well. And once that happens, if you've got dead trees, limbs that are loose, they can all fall apart. What you got, Frank?
33,477.
Thank you, sir. 33, so just over 33,000. So that number, unfortunately, keeps going up and will likely do so over the next couple of hours as these storms move on through. So let's jump a little tighter on our storm system here, or our storm cell, I should say, right near Eagle Lake, and that's near Lissy. You see there's Wallace. So anywhere in and across this area, as that continues to work its way eastward, just north of Highway 90, that's under that tornado-warned cell. That goes until 4:30 this afternoon. So this is just one of about 4 pockets of areas that we're watching very carefully into this afternoon. In fact, let's take a peek at that and see what we can spot if we get inside and get an idea. Yeah, so we're not getting a whole lot of tight rotation within this. This may be one of those where, the outbound winds, the red winds here, the green winds here, the kind of swirl that they're seeing was just enough for the National Weather Service to say, you know what, I don't trust that cell. Let's go ahead and put a warning on that just to make sure that it's safe. That's what a lot of these are. I get this question asked all the time, and they say, well, what's the criteria? There's specific criteria that they use for each of their thresholds, but one of the things they use is the eyeball test for what they're seeing on the radar, too. If it looks like that there's enough rotation, or at least a potential for that, National Weather Service will always err on the side of caution and go ahead and slap a tornado warning on that just to make sure that it goes to your phone, your notifications, if you're in and around that area, so you know if you're doing something else and maybe not paying attention to the weather, you know that it's there, and certainly something that you need to take a very close watch of. So that's the velocity we're seeing so far. We've got some very strong winds here just to the east of Katy as well. They're moving towards the radar site. Radar site is over down around League City, which would make sense if the leading edge of this front is starting to press its way in at about 40 miles an hour. You would expect to see the winds out ahead of that, probably even stronger. I think Frank said it in the last hour here. He said, if you get a front that's moving 50 miles an hour, you need 50-mile-an-hour winds or better behind it to just shove it like a bulldozer, and that's exactly what we're seeing. If we look at the threats, biggest threats that we've got, mostly rain for just about everybody. But if you go down towards that storm over to Eagle Lake in particular, that one just to the west of Wallace there, right on top of Lissy, you're looking at a potential that we could be seeing some pretty decent hail within that storm too. So it's certainly something that we'll watch very carefully. Not seeing a real strong rotational sign with that. That's certainly good news, but if you turn it back over to the radar, that's a gnarly looking storm nonetheless, and there probably is at least some hail making it to the ground or attempting to make it to the ground at this point. We don't have any skits on this, so there's no severe parameter markers that I can show you at this point, but nonetheless, this is one of those storms you don't want to really mess with. We do have one just to the south, or north, I should say, of Edna, moving over towards El Campo. Let's see what that has. That's a pretty tight little core of the cell as well. And right now, it looks like that in particular, that we could be talking about, inch-size hail or so maybe a little higher than penny-size hail, dime-size hail. Severe hail potential on that, about 50%. But look at this, 2 things. One, it's moving east at about 30 miles an hour. So that's slower than what we were seeing before. So they're slowly starting to lose a little bit of steam. That's an indication that they're probably going to slowly start to back off in terms of their severity, but it also still has cloud tops at about 32,000 feet. So it's a very big storm if you're looking at it. If you're over in El Campo and you're looking off to the west, you could probably see that big cumulonimbus cloud building and building and building. Not only that, I've been checking out some of our traffic cameras, and it looks like we've been dealing with some pretty messy conditions and spots, and also tracking some pretty good lightning there just south of Katy towards Sealy. So that's the 3 trouble spots that we've got so far. This system that's over towards Liberty County and Lumberton is actually moving away. Thankfully, that'll be north of Beaumont here in just a little bit. And once it does, that should be the end of that. I don't expect to see the northern end of this line that's up near Lufkin. That will slide north of Jasper, and then most of this northern stuff here you see over across parts of San Jacinto and into Polk County. All of this is non-severe. It will probably just continue to bring in some pretty hefty rain and likely some strong winds with it as well. But if you're watching us over towards Navasota, if you're over into the Huntsville, Walker County's gotten rocked most of the day today. This is where that jet stream had set up shop, and these storms, as they got closer to it there, really blew up very fast, starting at about noon today all the way through about 2-3 o'clock. So they've let that, looks like they've let that tornado warning expire. That's the good news. But still, we've got these storms that are continued to slide across the area here over the next 2 to 3 hours. Let me go to the feature cast. I want to show you what this looks like, because I know a lot of folks are like, okay, I see it out there, but you know, when are we done? When is this out of here? Which is all what everybody's question wants to be at this point. And let's see what we've got. Our feature cast is doing a pretty good job. The line is a little beefier, what it's showing than what's actually out there, but the timing of this has got it locked in pretty well at this point. And in fact, there's 4 o'clock. As we take it to about 5 o'clock, notice that's pushing into downtown. So that's why I mentioned for folks out at NRG or going to the game, you might want to get inside early, get in there and get yourself a cold one, because we'll likely be looking at some pretty wet, nasty, windy conditions. Certainly don't want to be standing out there with lightning either, if there is any. By 7 o'clock, that's over to the coast, and then long gone after that. Once we transition towards tonight and tomorrow, we get into a drier, cooler forecast, but that's when we'll likely be seeing just a slight chance for that. Now, into Tuesday, and I zoom this out because I want to show everybody what we're seeing. We could be talking about a potential for some severe weather ripping its way across parts of Georgia, Atlanta. If you've got a Delta flight, if you're trying to hopscotch through Atlanta, this is going to be one of those where really could be impacting not only travel but weather conditions for tomorrow there into the Carolinas. You see the snow up there towards Chicago, and this is the storm system itself. So we're going to catch the back end of this. That's where that colder air is moving in for our Tuesday, and that's just Tuesday morning. By the time we get into the afternoon, that starts to move north. They will probably reconfigure this severe weather threat. This is what we've been watching out there for most of the day. But right about where we saw the tornado warnings, right about where they popped up and then across some of our northeastern counties. So once again, Storm Prediction Center, the guys and gals that work there, best at what they do, and they pretty much nailed right about where we were going to see most of that for this afternoon. So certainly not shocked to see that. All right, real quickly, and we'll go back to the radar here. For the national championship, Michigan, Washington, as we said, our own Rochelle Turner is out there with the fans right now. I think by 5 o'clock, that's when we're going to see the biggest threat for strong to severe storms move on through. Wouldn't be shocked to see another severe thunderstorm warning as that line tries to push its way in here. And then as we get into 7 to 8 o'clock, notice the temperatures drop quickly into the 50s, and then a little bit of drizzle maybe left over by 10 o'clock, and we're around 54 degrees. And that's going to be the temperatures as we get in towards Tuesday's forecast. So expect those overnight lows to get quite chilly. And in fact, we will see a very cool forecast after that. So let's go back to the Storm Tracker 2 live radar and just give you a quick update of what we're seeing. And right on cue there. See, this is what they do to the weather folk here. As soon as you jump back on the radar, slap a new warning on that, and figured that would be the case. So let's jump in a little tighter. Brand new warning just popped up. This is from just south of Cypress. There's Katy. Katy dealing with some rumbly weather right now, and that does include most of the metro area. Let's see. That is a brand new severe thunderstorm warning that goes 445. Thank you, Frank.
Bush Intercontinental reported a 52-mile-an-hour wind gust. Yes, and there are 2-hour and 45-minute delays at both airports.
So imagine the high rollers that are trying to get to the game tonight.
Oh, well, that's not.
They can't land.
right now.
Right,
Can't land.
exactly.
Not with those winds.
Not with those winds.
So 2 hour and 45-minute delays average for Bush and Hobby right now.
Wow. So we're talking almost 3 hours at both of the airports. So that's unfortunately a problem. You know what? There'll be some folks that are going to spend an extra night here in Houston. I have to take that morning flight tomorrow. My goodness, what a mess. Anyway, let's go a little further south. Wouldn't be shocked, to be honest with you, if they put this cluster right here near East Bernard under a severe thunderstorm warning as well. It's looking rather beefy. And my guess is that they put this one here because of this cluster just outside of Katy and then Cypress. So there's Cypress, there's Jersey Village. So you've got Highway 6. There's the Grand Parkway out 99. So, and we were tracking this about an hour ago. Frank was talking about the fact that Katy was going to see some of this, that this would hold together by the time it got towards Brookshire and Katy and down to Fulshire, and it certainly did do that. Thankfully, we're not seeing any severe part to that, but still strong storm nonetheless. So I think if you're anywhere, from Mission Bend, if you're in the Energy Corridor, Spring Valley, Bunker Hill Village, heads up, these storms are going to be headed in your direction here over the next probably 20 to 25 minutes. So let me zoom this out, and I want to just put a motion on this over the last hour just to get a sense of what we're looking at. And there you go. This is how fast these storms are moving. So it's sort of a double-edged sword because they're moving so quickly. They do have the potential to pop some severe parameters, a la our severe thunderstorm warning and our tornado warning that we saw. But it also means that they come in and they slam through real fast. And once they're done, they're done. And that's it. And that may be what we're dealing with right now. So it's just a question of how much of this we're going to have to kind of keep a watch on. And in fact, that's pretty good right now. Let me see if I can get over to our traffic cameras and get a sense of what we're seeing. See if there's
And again, the line's moving at 50 miles an hour.
50 miles an hour, says Frank, right? So there you go.
And temperatures are dropping into the 50s pretty quickly behind this system.
Are they? Okay. So that's what we're seeing right now. So let's go to the Southwest Freeway. So that's what it looks like right here at the KPRC 2 studios. And Frank, look at the jiggling that's happening on our tower cam. That tower out there is what? A couple hundred feet?
Yeah, 10 stories.
About 10 stories. Okay, so the tower's 10 stories. If you've driven past us on the Southwest Freeway, it's that 2 and the tower right outside of the station here, and we use it as our wind gauge. This will give you an indication. And the front hasn't even made it here to the station yet, but you see just how dark the skies are. And this is going to be, I think, a very slow go for a lot of folks trying to get home tonight where they are as well. So please, please, please do your best to be as careful as you can. All right.
53 mile an hour wind gust in Angleton.
Okay, 53 mile an hour wind gust in Angleton. So, this front's moving, and again, you said it just a second ago, is that if, your front is moving at close to 50 miles an hour, you got to have at least 50 mile an hour winds behind it, pushing it at that pace. And I think that's exactly what we're dealing with right now. So you've got that new severe thunderstorm warning that goes until 4:45, and that's for most of the metro area. And then, of course, that one just south of there, right south of Sealy, outside of Rosenberg. That's one I'm curious that they haven't put anything on that yet. My guess is that the Weather Service is going to be watching that very carefully. But if we jump in a little tighter on that, let me slide over. There's Fulshire, there's Orchard, there's Wallace. I'm right on top of Wallace right now. So if you're in and around Wallace, you're getting rocked by this storm that's just blasting its way through. So anywhere from there, Simonton, as you move on down towards East Bernard. None of these have any sort of tornado warnings on them. We're not seeing a whole lot of rotation, but they're packing still a pretty good punch as they're smashing their way through. So certainly make sure that you are very careful. There's Highway 36. And then, of course, I believe that's Highway 60 as well. All right. So now if we slide up a little further to our north, there's Katy. And then as you get over towards Jersey Village and Cypress, that's part of where we're seeing that severe thunderstorm warning. As I mentioned, that goes till 4:45. KPRC 2 reporter Bryce Newberry is actually out in the storm tracker right in around the Cypress area. Bryce, what kind of bumpy conditions are you? Oh, okay. So he's out in the storm tracker right now. Sorry, I thought we had auto on, but that's a live shot from his storm tracker vehicle. And you see what I see. That is some really messy conditions out on 290. They said his location is right around Cypress. Do we know, is he going outbound or inbound Okay, so he's just south of Cypress. Gotcha. So you get the idea. Things are pretty messy out there. Not only are we seeing a pretty good amount of spray, but those wipers are going, and that is probably what we're going to see for at least the next 1 to 2 hours here as we get in towards our evening commute. I know I always try to look at sort of what's the positive of all of this, and the timing on this has been fairly consistent, even from late last week. If you were watching all of us on Friday and Daji over the weekend, we were telling you this was going to be a messy Monday afternoon, evening commute, and that's exactly what we're seeing. The good news is that once it's out of here, we should have a couple of quiet days before we'll see another system swing through here quickly Friday morning. You probably won't even really notice it's there. I'm not expecting any severe weather with that, but it is going to get mighty cold for the weekend forecast. Some of the numbers that Frank and I'll show you this evening they'll get your attention. Let's put it that way. All right, I appreciate that chat, guys. Head back over to the radar here, and we'll show you. So there's where Bryce is, right outside of Cypress. So he's actually, if you're going northbound, you're going to get out of the heavy stuff here pretty quickly as soon as you get outside of Cypress. But from there down to Jersey Village, there's, what is that? It's Highway 6 over towards the Beltway. This is all starting to approach. And, of course, you see this yellow blinking box right here. That's a severe thunderstorm warning that goes until 4:45, and that's for a good chunk of the metro Harris County. So my guess is that what we'll start to see as this cluster, I should say, moves closer, is this from Jersey Village meets up with some of the leftovers here towards Bel Air and down around Pasadena. We may see some strengthening, at least of some of these cells, right on top of much of downtown up into the Heights, towards Garden Heights as well. So that's certainly something I think we're going to have to watch very carefully. So let me back this out. And you see Katy and Fulshire, and then, of course, it's this cluster just north of East Bernard towards Rosenberg. Let's jump in tight on this for all of our folks and friends down in Fort Bend County. So Richmond to Rosenberg, just north of there, you're seeing it. There's Orchard along Highway 34. There's Wallace up to Brookshire and Pattison, so it's kind of wedged in between those two areas. And then, of course, East Bernard there along Highway 90, also looking at some heavy rain and thunderstorms that are going to continue to pound through. Now, the good news is, remember we were talking about Eagle Lake, 10, 15 minutes ago? They're basically done. And in fact, all of these counties back off to the west, our far western counties here, including Colorado County, will probably be taken out of that tornado watch very quickly here, as soon, I should say, as that line moves on through. Now, if we jump it a little further to the south here, for our friends out towards Wharton and now Campo, look at this one near right there. So that'll be moving its way towards, let's say, Plainview, Jones Creek, about 4:47. So and it says 20 to 30 minutes. We've been kind of throwing that in half at this point, because if you look at the movement, these storms are moving at almost 50 miles an hour. So they're driving basically at sort of, freeway speed, not necessarily full speed, but you get the idea that they're moving as fast as a car is moving as well. So that means that they're going to come in fast, they're going to slam right across the area, and they are gone right after that. So once you get this through, that's it. And that should be the end of what will likely be a bit of a stormy afternoon for a lot of folks. Tail end of that starting to beef up as it moved towards Victoria, between there, Port Lavaca, and then eventually that'll shift its way down towards Matagorda Bay. But that is the front, and once that's out of here, that's all she wrote. So we're just waiting on this front to move on through. As it does, that should give us a better sense of what will likely be an end to what has been a pretty stormy Monday, late morning, early afternoon for us so far. So no tornado warnings. That's the good news. We do still have this severe thunderstorm warning. It is active out there across Jersey Village, as Frank mentioned a second ago. We're up to almost 3-hour delays at both Bush and Hobby airports. So if you're trying to catch somebody in for a flight, or you're trying to catch a evening flight to get out, my guess is they're probably going to start stacking them up, and there may be a lot of cancellations this evening, or some of the ones that just aren't going to get out for a couple of hours until 6, 7 o'clock when all of this moves on through. So that's certainly a concern for a lot of folks that are trying to get in or out of town. I understand that. And then the other big issue as well, as we said, is out towards NRG with our friends that are enjoying the game or about to enjoy the game. That is also a bit of a messy forecast there. As you go, there's downtown, there's West U, you get out towards NRG, we're starting to see, we'll call it light rain at this point that we're seeing Westwood Park, and then over towards Brookhaven, Sunnyside, and then down around Myrtle. So Southwest side, still under that severe thunderstorm warning until 4:45. I'm curious if they don't let that expire because it doesn't really look like the storm is beefing up that much. What they may be watching here, as I mentioned a second ago, if you're watching here too, is that as this line meets up with the leftovers of what's happening out here across southeast, if the two of those together can kind of smash in, and I think we're seeing some of that over here. Notice as you get from Wallace to East Bernard over towards Rosenberg, you see how this just kind of beefs up. So it sort of looks like it's cannibalizing some of these storms that have been moving towards Needville, Fairchilds, and then south of Sugar Land and southern Fort Bend County. So if that's the case, then we may see some of that over across much of the metro area there. As I said, I've been watching the traffic cameras that are just off screen here that you can't see, and very sloppy conditions from the Katy Freeway out towards FM 1463. West Park is probably a mess as well, my guess. So, these are going to be some pretty messy conditions over the next hour or so. And the other part is too is that we're seeing these power outages. As Frank said a second ago, we're up to northwards of 33,000 plus power outages, and we'll see if we add to any of those over the next 30 minutes to an hour or so as these storms continue to move on through. Guys, do you know if we've gotten any update on Livingston ISD, if they've released the kids from up there? It looks like they're pretty much done for the day. If we got any update on that, that would be great if you could let me know. We do have, looks like we've got a little bit of stormy weather right in and around that area, but I think for the most part, once this another 20 minutes, this is gone. But earlier, Livingston ISD had all of the kids on hold at their schools just for safety at this point to make sure that the storms could move on through, and once they did, looked like we were looking at a better forecast with that for them, at least for the rest of this afternoon. Another messy one here over towards Lumberton. That's a little out of our viewing area, but you get the idea. I know we still have some folks from around Beaumont and Silsbee that can pick us up, and this is a nasty cluster moving towards Kirbyville. So thankfully that will move out of the picture, and as it does, that's something that we'll be watching pretty carefully here. So let me zoom this out, and I'm going to actually take this way wide here because I want to give you a sense of what we're seeing just from, let's see, where we go. I want to show you how big this storm system is that we've been watching and tracking here over the better half of about, okay, let's get that out there. Let me pull the U.S. radar up. Let me see. Oh, you know what? That's what we can do too. We can look at the power outages, and this will give us a good sense of what we're seeing. These power outages, as Frank was saying a second ago, and boy, you really get the idea of where they're impacted. Take the lightning off of that and get a sense. Let's move that out of the way. There we go. So right about where most of these storms moved on through, that's where you're seeing some pretty intense power outages here in and across most of the area. So, we're talking about, if you look at some of these power outages here in particular up into Montgomery County, that's what, about 9,000 folks there. If you look over here in parts of Harris County, we're talking about 24,000 out towards Sealy. Waller County, they've picked up, looks like anywhere from, they're just under number out there as well, and then same thing out towards Wharton and El Campo. So you get the idea. A lot of power outages out there that certainly we'll have to watch for some additional ones. That there probably will be a few more as well. Okay, and just got word from Anna that they've asked folks over at the National Championship to take shelter. This is a live shot of it right now, and unfortunately this is what we thought. Looks like we've got Rochelle Turner. Guys, let me know if you've got her, and let's get an update from her. What's happening?
Hey, I got you. Hey, guys, yes, just here in the last 30 seconds, they told everybody to take shelter. You can see fans running towards different venues down here trying to get in place. Just here in the past 15 minutes, the wind dropped. There was a super cold gust, and just from looking at it, guys, you can see cups, there's fences, there's all kinds of banners that are just flying. I mean, take a look right over here. James, kind of pan the camera right over here where you can see these Capital One fences that are leaning just from this strong wind. We can feel some of the rain starting to pick up, and it's a lot cooler up Okay, so we have some of the workers that have just put them on the side, but fans are running, trying to take cover, take shelter. There's a building behind us where they're taking shelter, and there's also NRG Stadium where most of the fans are running towards. But this all happened here in about the last 10 to 15 minutes. The wind is really starting to pick up, and the rain is starting to come down. So right now, the biggest thing for us out here is safety. Everybody is just trying to be safe and try to assemble some of the equipment, some of the fences on its side so it doesn't blow and hit anybody. But for the most part, we can definitely tell that there is something that is coming. Everybody is over here. James can come out here a little bit. There's some people kind of holding up this fence so it doesn't blow away. But super strong winds, very cold, icy rain. The sky is actually starting to get really dark right above us. So those storms that you were talking about, Justin, have definitely touched down here in this area. That game is going to start tonight at 6 o'clock. And for the most part, the fans that we spoke with, they said they were a little worried about these storms. I don't know if you can see just further down there some of the what looks like a little bit of chaos of people trying to hold up equipment and hold up some of the fences down there. The wind is just too powerful for everybody to kind of hang on to something. Oh my goodness, that's strong. That's a really strong wind gust. But yeah, we're okay out here. We are doing all right. It's just, it's cooler, and the wind is starting to pick up. The rain is starting to pick up, and fans are starting to make their way out to the stadium to take shelter. So that's kind of what it's looking like right out here, right at NRG. We're just at the ultimate tailgate experience. So not quite the experience fans wanted, but hopefully this will pass over and fans can enjoy the game later on this afternoon. Hey, Justin, I'm going to toss it back to you in the studio. How's it looking right now?
Well, unfortunately, Rochelle, part of the issue is that we've got a new severe thunderstorm warning, and it's right on top of you basically at this point. Let me zoom in right about where we're seeing NRG, and they're basically at the intersection of both of these severe thunderstorm warnings. So there's NRG, there's Main Street, there's Kirby, there's the South Loop. So this is what Rochelle was talking about. My guess is they're getting some clusters of some strong, heavy, not only rain, but the wind starting to come in from these clusters just to the north of them right there. The good news is that I don't see any lightning with that, but boy, that's not something I would want to mess with out there. I think that's a very smart move for everybody that's out there. Get in as fast as you can to NRG. This is one of those, if you know somebody that's at the game or they're down there, text them and say, hey, I'm watching the weatherman right now, and he said you need to get inside the stadium for safety. I think that's the best move that we can make, because both of those areas are under severe thunderstorm warnings. Not only that, you see this cluster back off to the west, just over towards Renwick Drive. That's headed right for the stadium. And unfortunately, this isn't going to get much better. You saw a second ago with Rochelle's shot. The fences had already been knocked down. I saw some of those signs that they were for one of the sponsors were really struggling to try to stay up too. So as these winds, and Frank, you said that, what was the wind gust over towards
53 and Angleton,
53 at Angleton and
Bush.
52 at Bush, right? So that's the type of wind we're talking about that's moving in to the area at this point. So it's just going to be tough sledding, I think, for the next hour or so as folks are trying to get home, get out or whatnot. And actually, we've got reports of debris down on roadways, highways. So this is just going to be a tough afternoon for us here. So we've just got to try to do our best to get through it. All right, so let me do a quick reset since we got to Rochelle there. I'm going to widen this out and show you what we're looking at. This is the leftovers of the actual cold front moving through right now. She mentioned that it's gotten a lot cooler over to NRG, and that's probably what we call a gust front. It's that cold air that rushes out ahead of the main line that's moving on through. My bigger concern is at this point is that some of these brighter colors over towards Katy and Mission Bend, if this can hold together, it's going to smash right across parts of downtown and into NRG Stadium. So cannot stress enough. If you know somebody that's down at the game, if they're trying to wait it out or whatnot, or if they're just stuck in traffic at this point, this may be one of those where you just got to wait this out and then go in after the storms are there. I was at the Texans game a couple weeks ago when they were playing the Browns, and it was the same way. Had to wait until the storms were over. It was just not safe enough to go in at the time. So if we put this on an hour loop here, notice this is what it looks like. You can see just how fast these storms have really kind of moved into the area and then sort of collapsed. And that's why real fast, the National Weather Service just slapped 2 of those severe thunderstorm warnings on there because not only of the wind, but you just don't know if any of these, storms are going to develop some hail, if there's going to be a quick rotation with any of those. Most of the warnings we've seen today have been put on these storms very quickly, as they can just get an indication that you're getting some of these wind gusts, as Frank said just a second ago, 50-plus mile-an-hour winds blasting out ahead of this whole line that's moving on through. Now, unfortunately, we're talking about some of the issues they had down at Hobby Airport, the almost 3-hour delays there in Intercontinental. And look at this big line right there, that huge cluster that's developed just west of the airport. So they probably just shut everything down for now until this sort of winds itself down over, whatever it is, the next 30 minutes to an hour or so that it needs to. And it will. That's the good news. It's just going to take probably another hour or so for that to happen. So not only that, but if you look back off to the west, we've still got some pretty hefty thunderstorms down around Wharton and El Campo. Those look like they're collapsing just a bit, but this whole front is continuing to press its way across the area. And this is just unfortunately going to be a really messy forecast here for about the next 30 minutes or so. Certainly can't stress enough for the folks that are out there, especially if you're across much of the metro. You need to take this very seriously. And I know there's a lot of people that are trying to, get out, get home, try to get the groceries for this evening. Or if you're out picking up groceries for delivery, it's not going to be very pleasant over the next hour or so. We've got a new severe thunderstorm warning that's popped up just north of Lemerton. That's moving its way out in across East Texas there. And there's the tail end of the front. You see College Station, Brenham over to Columbus, everybody there starting to get out of this mess, and that should be the end of it for the rest of the day today. And as we get into tomorrow, Wednesday's forecast looks good. Thursday will be a little warmer. We'll see another quick system on Friday. And then, of course, as we get to the weekend, it'll be dry. We've got a lot going on between the Marathon and, of course, the Texans playoff game against the Browns again. Both of those look like they should be okay. So this is really the messiest day that I think we're going to see here over the next couple of days. We're just not going to see a whole lot of that. So Katie on down towards Sugar Land and Mission Bend over to Hobby. You see the big thunderstorm clusters coming through. I wouldn't be shocked if they take Cypress and Jersey Village out of that severe thunderstorm warning, or at least trim it back. That goes until 4:45. Let me put a stop on that and see what that next one goes until that one probably. Hold on a second here. There, let's put a stop on that. Let's try that again. There we go. So that's 4:45. Then the one that we're seeing over towards NRG and Hobby, that goes until 5 o'clock. So we're talking about that one in particular goes for at least the next 20 minutes or so. So we've got from Sugar Land to Rosenberg, Needville down to El Campo. That's where we're looking at some pretty nasty, messy weather. And let's jump in a little tighter on these as well. So there's Thompson's, there's Meadow Place, there's Bel Air, over to Bunker Hill Village. And then same thing over towards Brookside Village, Hobby, and Galena Park as well. So pretty wild to see. Unfortunately, we are known for our wild weather here across Houston, and folks out at the National Championship are getting a taste of that as well. If you're not familiar with how we do things down here in Houston, thankfully this should all move out of here about the next hour or so. I'm going to continue to track this, but right now I want to send it back over to let's see. We've got Andy and who else is on the desk there as well. Okay, so we've got Bill and Andy. Boys, we knew this was going to be a messy afternoon. Hopefully this can get out of here so folks can at least get in there and everyone else can get home or where they need to get to without too much trouble out on the roads for the next hour or so.
Yeah, certainly, Justin, those storms causing widespread issues across the area. This is KPRC 2 News at 4. If you are just joining us, we are tracking a line of strong storms moving across the Houston area, causing some power outages.
Yeah, we just took a look at the CenterPoint outage tracker. We saw that 27,000, well, now the number is 36,703 customers affected, and we're looking at about 552 outages throughout our area as those storms that Justin was talking about are moving in to the metro area, into Houston. Also, we saw those live pictures from Rochelle's live shot where you could see folks running towards NRG to try to get shelter inside. They were putting the fencing down, so a lot going on with these storms. Of course, we're on top of it, tracking every single bit of it.
Yeah, impacting those fans at the college football playoffs at NRG. We want to go now to our Rochelle Turner, who was down there.
Yeah, hey guys. First off, I can tell you that it is chilly out here. Earlier today, it was hot. We had on these jackets. We were prepared, for this rain, but it is really cool. We're not seeing any rain, but the wind gust is starting to pick up. Here in about the last 15 minutes, they have asked all fans to either go to a building behind us or to the stadium, and that's why it looks completely different than what it is right here. You can see a few people walking around, but for the most part, that strong sail that kind of came over us here in the past 10 minutes, it knocked over some of these fences. You can see some of the workers trying to put up some of the signs and trying to take some of the stuff down, but it was just that powerful. And we could hear people saying, oh my gosh, this is really strong. We didn't think this was going to happen. But for the most part, everybody seems really safe. They've headed into the stadium or into one of the shelter facilities, but the wind is starting to pick back up. I'm going to walk a little bit to kind of show you guys what we're seeing out here. So some of these fences were actually placed on their side, but you can see how strong some of the wind was. It just completely ripped off this sign right here, this vinyl. And then take a look up here, guys, at the 2024 National Championship signs. All those just completely flew forward when that strong storm or gust kind of came through. But it was a completely 360. It went from being hot to cold. The sky is dark. The sun was kind of out a little bit, but now it's gone. It was completely different. As for this fan experience, it's now closed. So now fans will have to just go to the stadium until that game starts at 6:30. And that's what we spoke to a lot of fans out here today. Were you guys, concerned about this weather? Could it get ugly? What were you guys going to do? And they said they were just going to follow the instructions. If there was some type of tornado warning or watch that came over the stadium during the game, they were just going to be prepared. But overall, this is definitely, not the experience many fans wanted to come to here in Houston, but the weather, it just kind of came through, guys, and we're seeing it change as we're talking to you guys right now. But for the most part, things are a little calm. I can kind of tell that it's going to pick up some of the rain here in the next few minutes. I can feel a few drizzles, but nothing too heavy. That's something that we have not seen since we've been out here since about lunchtime. It did rain a little bit on our way down here, but we haven't seen a straight downpour or just rain just coming down like crazy. It's just been a drizzle on and off here and there. But for the most part, we are seeing some of the companies they're starting to take down and pick up. Let's go walk down here, James, a little bit to see what we see in this area. They had some performances, but they had to get them up on stage early because of this weather. But again, just many people just, trying to be safe and taking down some of their equipment. Over here, we have more fences on its side and vinyls and signs and flags, just kind of all over the place. Most of the debris and trash that was on the ground, it was swept away. That's how strong the winds were when it came through. And so, but thankfully, we haven't seen anybody who was hurt or needed any help, so that's good. But for most part, it looks like they had to use some of these platforms right here at the end to make sure this tent stayed in place. And it's completely different. That's what's crazy to me, is that just about an hour ago, this area was full of fans, and I was telling you guys back there in the booth that, something's on top of us. There was some type of sail, some type of storm on top of us, and you could feel it. And as people were running to the stadium, the wind was picking up, the rain was starting to come down, but for the most part, it's still in that similar stage. We're just not seeing any heavy rain. So right now, it's really cold. My phone says about 70 degrees, but it feels like it's in the low 60s, and it's very windy, starting to get dark. We're not seeing a lot of rain out here right now. But for right now, we're going to toss it back to the studio, and we're going to go walk down a little bit more just to kind of see what the vibe is and how fans are kind of holding up with this weather.
Yeah, and you and photojournalist James Perry certainly be safe out there, Rochelle, as the line of storms continue to push their way across our area. That the winds that she was talking about, that's the gust front that Justin was mentioning, sort of that initial push as the line of storms get ready to move through our area.
And we could actually see it. We were looking outside of the windows here at KPRC. We could see the wind really picking up, and that's what they felt out there as well. Just some real images when you're talking about a college football championship experience. Tons of fans from out of the city, all over the country coming to visit Houston, and then you have something like this happen where they have to. We saw some of those folks actually running towards NRG. So a lot going on there, and just not what officials had in mind when they planned this game.
And you got to be better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, and a lot of people too, when we're talking about the game, a lot of people are on their way there, right? So then you have traffic times right now, it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. That's when you get the most traffic here in Houston. So you also have folks on their way there dealing with this sort of stuff and then inside of it. So you just want everybody to get there as fast as possible, get inside the stadium, enjoy the game, and forget about the weather for a little bit.
And speaking of traffic, we have our Bryce Newberry, who is inbound right now on the Katy Freeway. Bryce, what are conditions like out there?
Andy, the rain falling still right now. Cars barely moving on the Katy Freeway. I'll show you outside. We're only going about 20 miles an hour right now. A lot of stop-and-go traffic, again, inbound on the Katy Freeway. And we're in Waller County right now, just approaching the Harris County line. So you can see the roads are very wet. Luckily, the heavy rain seems to have kind of tapered off, at least for right now. And I can tell you, just looking off west a little bit ago, you could actually see some sun peeking through the clouds, little rays of sunshine. So hopefully a good sign that this is kind of starting to push out, but again, across the metro area during rush hour right now. So cars are moving in both directions on the Katy Freeway right now, but I can tell you it's pretty slow going for anyone who's trying to get into Houston. Andy and Bill.
All right, Bryce Newberry for us near Waller out there, heading inbound as the rain continues to fall. And you mentioned the storms, the line of storms. We're looking outside of our window here, and it's pitch black out.
It's pitch black, yes. And then again, we mentioned rush hour traffic, folks being in this. We're also keeping an eye on the CenterPoint outage tracker, right? And I'm updating it here on my phone. And just that last update, we have 50,774 customers affected and 622 active outages. So this is not just affecting folks at NRG, as we just spoke about, but affecting folks in and around Harris County and our viewing area. And
it could be several hours, as we know, when we're dealing with the sheer volume of power outages from weather like this. Some folks may be in the dark for several hours. It's certainly something that they have to anticipate and prepare for. We're going to take a short break here, I believe. Before we do so, I want to get you a live look at the Storm Tracker 2 live radar. You can see a lot of yellow, a lot of red, and a lot of orange that indicates the intensity of those storms as they continue to roll through the Houston area.
We'll be right back.